Hello, everybody. My name is Sniping is Fun, and I welcome you back to the next top 10 list I present to all of you here on my channel. And what better way to keep this train going, to keep the ball rolling, than to have a top 10 that deals with a fighting game, my bread and butter, besides RPGs on this channel. And what better way to do it than with a Smash Brothers style game? And we name the video, you see the thumbnail and whatnot. It is going to be about the game coming out next year, MultiVersus, the Smash clone that's based off Warner Brothers. And if you have not seen my top 10 I recently did last night about the top 10 games I'm looking forward to in 2022, that is on that list. I think that was like number 5, and I'm looking forward to it because I like fighting games, because I like Smash Brothers, and it's like Smash Brothers, and because I like a bunch of Warner Brothers properties and big, crossover style games. All of that comes together. I'm looking forward to it. And there's a bunch of people online that are super heavily at this point speculating that, because it's got a lot of hype from a lot of people for next year. And me too. I'm looking forward to it. And I came up with what I would consider my top 10, with honorable mentions, characters I would love to see in it. It's definitely something I think they could add a bunch of characters to. I think there's enough hype there that's going to gain enough popularity. They can keep adding characters over time. It's a free game, especially. So, I think that's going to gain a lot of attention for this game too. And, like I said, there's so much interest in it now because they have the likes of Finn and Jake from Adventure Time. You got Steven Universe. You got Shaggy from Scooby-Doo. You got What's-Her-Face from Game of Thrones. I've never watched Game of Thrones. I have no idea who she is. Batman, Wonder Woman, Superman. You got Shaggy from Scooby-Doo, like I said. You got a bunch of interesting characters. Bugs Bunny. You got a crap ton of characters they can grab from old school and new school Warner Brothers properties. There's a lot, especially when people speculate and I see what kind of characters get recommended. And when you look into it, anything that's connected to Warner Brothers has a potential chance of getting in this game. So this crossover could be really, really good if they get the right characters and make them play just right and get some good, interesting movesets in there. This game could be very, very successful. They got potential on their on their hands to make this something really good. And without further ado, without this intro going on way too long, I think I've come up with 10 characters I personally at least want to see. And without further ado, let's get that started so this video doesn't go on too long. Starting with number 10, a character that I think, whose franchise I think can get a couple characters for that matter as well. It's a classic 2000s cartoon from Cartoon Network, and they can get a decent chunk of Cartoon Network characters in this list. They could do what, Cartoon Network beat 'em up like Smash Brothers style game tried to do back in the day. I cannot remember. Punch Time Explosion. They can do it better than what they tried to do back then, these developers. They can get some Cartoon Network characters in there. And this franchise has its popularity. Like I said, it's a 2000s classic. For people who grew up with it, I think they would like to see it get into this game. And I do think I've seen characters from this franchise speculated, and people wanting to put out their speculation and what they want to see. And it is number 1 from Codename Kids Next Door. Codename Kids Next Door was an awesome cartoon. I loved it back in the day. It was definitely one of the 2000s Cartoon Network shows that stood out the most. It wasn't my favorite. There's a few other shows I would put above it, but I definitely would say it stood out. It has its fans. It has its popularity. It lasted long enough, and it has enough interesting characters you could add. You could add other characters other than number 1. But number 1, I put in there because he's the main character. He's the leader of the group. He probably has the most fighting potential outside of maybe 4 and 5, or if you want to add villains or other non-main Kids Next Door members. You can use his gadgets. You can use his fighting style. He can have multiple different costumes, given that the game has customization, and you can get different costumes. He has different looks throughout the series that they can use before they start giving him random, canonical, non-used in the series costumes just to give him interesting costumes. I think there's a lot of customization there. There's a lot of moveset potential. There's enough popularity behind the series that it should get at least one character in this game. And I picked him because he's the main character. And number 1 from Codename Kids Next Door is my number 10. Number 9, now this is going off the wall a little bit, and I wouldn't think he would be potentially in this game if I just heard the concept before I saw what characters they announced. But they put What's-Her-Face from Game of Thrones, which means they could put in like the more mature, more darker WB properties, and this franchise is owned by WB, I'm going with Freddy Krueger from A Nightmare on Elm Street. He would have such an interesting moveset if you use all his different, tactics throughout the movie series, all the different things he did in the dreams, all the freaking nightmare fueled type stuff. He's pretty much magical. He's nightmare fueled. He has all these different abilities he could transform into. You can make an interesting moveset with him. He would bring name recognition. He's definitely a character I've seen mentioned a few times, at least in terms of characters wanting their wish lists of characters in this game. So it's not like I'm the only one who's recommended, asking for him. And while I'm not like a big fan of the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise, I recognize how iconic it is. And I do think throwing in an iconic horror movie character that's from a darker WB franchise, property that they own or whatever, would be kind of cool. And it's not like this game is not going to have that. They have freaking Game of Thrones. And I know this is not the exact same thing. That's more fantasy and this is more dark, horror. But that show has a bunch of blood and killing and really dark themes that transfers over to Nightmare on Elm Street. And like I said, he has multiple, moveset potential you can add from the countless movies they've done with him since the 80s, countless customizations you could do to costumes. He's recommended, he's popular, it's a name brand for them. I think he at least stands a chance, and I definitely would think he'd be a cool character to add to this game. Number 8, we already have Bugs Bunny. We need to have his big main rival, Daffy Duck. I know they haven't shown the whole roster yet and more characters could be added, but I'm surprised that the only Looney Tunes character we have so far in this game is just Bugs Bunny so far. And that not on an initial launch roster, they're going to have someone else like, I don't know, Daffy Duck. Daffy Duck and Bugs Bunny have been rivals since pretty much their inception for decades now. You could add how crazy lunatic based, Looney Tunes based a moveset could work for Bugs Bunny. You could do the same thing, reference a bunch of different cartoons, bunch of different old movies from Looney Tunes for Daffy Duck as well. You could also throw in the likes of Duck Dodgers and all that and have him do laser guns. That could definitely be one of his costumes. He's a legend. He's an icon. They need, if there's to be at least one more Looney Tunes character on this roster, it has to be him. Next one is number 7, and it's a game franchise that WB owns now, which they never owned until probably the last decade or so. But it's not like this game isn't going to, it's going to pull from all properties. I don't think it's just going to be the cartoons, just the movies, just the stuff. I think the games are going to be too. And WB now owns Mortal Kombat. So who do you pick to represent for Mortal Kombat in this game? There's numerous choices. I was thinking a bunch of them out. But there's really only one legitimate choice, and it's because he's Ed Boon's guy, and that's Scorpion. Get over here. It has to be Scorpion. He's not going to get into Smash Brothers anytime soon, so put him in MultiVersus. You can have his countless costumes as customization. He's already a fighting game character, so his moveset would transfer over really well. You could throw in, the chain to capture people, and that could be his special ability. He has katanas now. You could have him do sword attacks. He can do martial arts. It would be a cool character. It'd represent the fighting game part of WB. He's not going to get into Smash Bros., so this is his next best chance. And I have seen people recommending him in the series. Is still popular to this day, despite the fact that I think the quality of the games has gone up and down very recently. And some of the decisions that WB's made with the Mortal Kombat franchise as of late is up and down. But that doesn't take away the fact that the character is still iconic, the franchise is still iconic, and he would be my choice to represent. If we were to get one singular Mortal Kombat character in any sort of crossover fighting game, Smash Brothers, this or whatever, my choice would be him, with a runner-up choice being Sub-Zero, and you could probably do both of them anyways, but we're only able to get one. I picked Scorpion because Scorpion is badass. It's Scorpion. We are on to number 6, and this is a classic movie franchise from them. It's beloved, it's iconic. Or I shouldn't even say franchise. It's one, well, to be fair, it is a franchise because there's one movie, there's a cartoon series. He's an iconic character. He's had video games before, way back when this movie came out in like the 80s. They are technically making a second one all these years later that I'm really questioning if it's going to be good or not. But it's Beetlejuice. Beetlejuice would be so epic, whether they get the cartoon version from the animated series or do it based off the movie or find some sort of amalgamation of fusing them together. Or one could be costumes. It could be costume choices. He has so much potential if you go from the animated series and the live-action movie. Beetlejuice would be really cool, and I'm saying his name 3 times, I think, at this point. Beetlejuice, okay, I definitely ruined it now. But he would be a cool character. He would definitely, I think, be a cool classic character that could add from the classic movie lineup of Warner Brothers properties and whatnot that they own and they make and they whatever. And moveset potential, he would definitely be recommended. I definitely seen, he was definitely a name I seen mentioned a lot when I was writing this list and looking at wish lists from other people. Beetlejuice would be really cool. Really cool. We are now in the top 5. And number 5, we already have Superman, we already have Batman, we already have Wonder Woman. It's obvious that DC is probably going to be a big thing they're going to represent in this, a bunch of superheroes and stuff like that. And I could have added a bunch of those characters to this list. Some of them might be in the honorable mentions. But we need a real good villain to represent and put into this game from the DC universe. And what better villain to pick than the Joker? The Joker. He was already in Mortal Kombat. They can take a lot of his movesets from that. They could take a lot of his moveset from Injustice. You have customizations for all the different classic Jokers. You can pretty much design them after the classic Joker, the new Joker, Heath Ledger's Joker, Joaquin Phoenix's Joker. Big costumes that look, he can have customizations. He has a crazy moveset. He already has a name behind him. DC's obviously going to be a bunch of characters in this because from the base roster they're releasing this game with so far, they announced it with at least, they have 3 DC characters so far, and that's the biggest of any property they put into MultiVersus so far. And he's like the most popular DC villain. Now, I don't want the roster to be overtaken by Batman characters like they do with Injustice, but a villain for sure they need to add from DC is the Joker. Number 4, another classic Cartoon Network cartoon, but this time we're going from the 2000s into that late 90s, early 2000s time span. Like, while Kids Next Door is like early-ish to mid-ish 2000s, almost verging on the end of the 2000s. This is tail end of the 90s, going into early 2000s. So definitely during my time in elementary school, middle school, and this was one of my favorite cartoons of all time back then. But we need Courage the Cowardly Dog in this, especially because I do think they're technically doing a reboot of that. I think they're bringing it back. There's rumors of bringing it back. Now, whether or not that cartoon's going to be any good, given the modern day adaptations, reboots, remakes, and all that stuff goes by, that's a lot to be, left to be desired. But putting them in there and basing them off the old classic cartoon, which is a nostalgia trip, and a lot of people love it because it's such an iconic franchise and it gets mentioned a lot, and people just love the series so much. I want Courage the Cowardly Dog in here. You could really do a moveset for him, and especially if you integrate all the different stuff he does in the series, you can integrate probably some stuff that Eustace or Muriel does. The villains, you can kind of reference the villains through his moveset and a lot of things he does in the series. Customization, he's worn different costumes. Customization, you can give him Muriel's dress and Eustace's outfit and his hat, Eustace's mask. Ooga booga booga! You can really do a lot of stuff with him. And it definitely would be like a lot. It would definitely be a character that a lot of the older fan base would have to look back on. And I definitely think this game needs to balance that out. They don't need to go for just characters that younger gamers know. They need to go for characters that a lot of older gamers and older viewers of WB properties know too, and make it a nice balance, which is like what Smash Brothers does. Smash Brothers has new characters, Smash Brothers has old characters. This game needs new and old and mesh them together. And Courage is definitely a Cartoon Network show I would love to see represented in this game, especially because he never made it into Punch Time Explosion. How the hell do you do a Cartoon Network Smash Brothers ripoff and not have Courage the goddamn Cowardly Dog? How? We're in the top 3 right now. And all 3 of these characters, I fought to like figure out who out of these three characters I'd put at number 1, 2, and 3, because this is definitely three characters I really think would make great characters, would make awesome movesets. Their properties are definitely likely, at least two of them are definitely likely to get in this game at some point. And yeah, but number 3 is going to be Neo from The Matrix. We just got the new Matrix movie that just came out. Whether or not you like that or not, but the original trilogy is beloved from back then, especially the original movie and even the second one. And Matrix was definitely a massive franchise back in the early 2000s when it started, or late. Well, not the first one I think came out in 99, I think. I forgot when it came out. But definitely the first one is a classic. The second one's still pretty good. The third one's okay. I haven't seen the new one yet. I've heard very mixed things about it. But The Matrix is an iconic franchise, and definitely more one of that, I wouldn't say mature, but darker, heavier franchises like a Game of Thrones you could throw into this game. You have moveset potential. You have different costumes. You could have classic Neo where he has short hair and he's clean shaven. You could have the new one that's pretty much just John Wick dressed up as Neo. He has moveset potential with guns for days. Matrix, slow motion, and everything else. And you could add other characters with him, but definitely I'd pick Neo for sure because he's the main character. Number 2, there's no way this thing is made and done without you having Harry Potter represented. The world of Hogwarts and the magical wizarding world will get into this at some point for sure, and Harry Potter's my number 2 because he's the main character. He's what the series is based off of. You can add Ron, Hermione, Voldemort, Snape, and all these other characters, Draco Malfoy later on, and for sure we add with him, but above all else, the main character, Harry Potter, has to be in this game. It has to be in. He is likely to get in. You can have customization for all the different years, young Harry, older Harry. You could probably get some muggle clothes and all the different things he's worn, different customization and whatnot. It's really interesting. And I'm sure they can get freaking Daniel Radcliffe to be involved in this because he still gets involved heavily with a lot of Harry Potter stuff. So I'm sure they can call him up and be like, come in, Daniel. You need to voice Harry. Okay. Wingardium Leviosa. And there you go. Now, before we get to number 1, like I did in the last list, I have a bunch of honorable mentions. A lot more on this one than the games I'm looking forward to next year's list. I only had about 6, 7 honorable mentions on that. 8, somewhere in there. I have like 10 honorable mentions here for this game. Legolas from Lord of the Rings. If they put in Game of Thrones, they're going to put in some characters from, Lord of the Rings. And technically, Gandalf is already rumored / leaked because when the pictures leaked before the game even got announced, they freaking had, they showed the picture of Gandalf. So we're likely going to get Gandalf. So who else do you add? A bunch of other characters. But one character I'd like to see added above all else is Legolas, so I can start sniping people with his bow and arrow. It'd be freaking awesome. Austin Powers, come on. Austin Powers would be so cool. It would get him back in the limelight, and maybe we can get something new from him because it would excite people that he's getting used in something and he hasn't been in anything since 2002. And the movies are classics, and he'd have an interesting moveset potential. Johnny Quest. It's an action-adventure series. He rides vehicles, uses weaponry, he can fight. You can base it off the original from like the 70s. I believe that's when the first series came out. You can base it off the next Johnny Quest, whatever, the one that has the epic intro. You can do everything. It's definitely has potential there. Yugi Moto. I know Yu-Gi-Oh! Isn't specifically like a WB property, but they technically own the English dub. I think and it was on Cartoon Network. It may be some weird licensing issues there, and anime characters that they have licensed probably won't make it into this game, but I would definitely like to see Yugi make it in. He would be kind of cool with the card-based stuff. Harry Callahan from Dirty Harry. You gotta have Dirty Harry here. It's definitely a classic, more darker WB franchise. Speaking of which, Rick Deckard from Blade Runner. Both Dirty Harry and Blade Runner would be awesome franchises to represent in this. The Hex Girls from Scooby-Doo. I mean, you could add Fred, you could add Daphne and Velma and Scooby-Doo themselves, but The Hex Girls would be a cool movie reference, and they were in some series after that too, so it's definitely more of an iconic niche thing. It's definitely not likely, but it would definitely be characters I'd love to see. The Animaniacs would be awesome choices. Obviously, super cartoony movesets, just like Bugs Bunny. It would work perfectly. And costumes for days. Ricochet from Mucha Lucha. Does anyone else remember Mucha Lucha from WB Kids? You know, like Mucha Lucha! And the crazy transformations and the crazy special abilities. It's very unlikely, but it would give me a little bit of a nostalgia trip to see him, any character from that, using anything. And another darker franchise, Alex DeLarge from A Clockwork Orange, because why the hell not? He was referenced as a random background character in the new Space Jam. Put him in this game. And with all that said, let's drum roll please for number one. The number one character I would love to see the most in this game, in MultiVersus, is none other than Freakazoid. Because it's freaking Freakazoid. He was definitely one of the cartoons I grew up with in the 90s that I loved the most, alongside Animaniacs and everything else on Cartoon Network for that matter. He was referenced recently. I think he made a cameo in the first season of New Animaniacs. I know I definitely brought him back for something. Like, it's an iconic, like, I wouldn't even say, it might be niche, but it definitely was big, back then at least, and people do remember him, and they reference stuff about him online, like, all the time. I would definitely like to see Freakazoid moveset potential. He has a bunch of different costumes. He'd be crazy to add. It definitely falls into that super cartoony Looney Tunes WB style like Bugs Bunny has, what the Animaniacs would likely have, what Daffy Duck would likely have, any of those super cartoony characters would likely have. He has that moveset. And I think it'd make a lot of the older fan base happy if he was in this game, because it's definitely like some recognition I think the character deserves, because I do think he was one of the better cartoon characters from back then. And with that being said, that's my list of the characters I want to see in MultiVersus. Let's go down the line. Number 10 is number 1 from Codename Kid Next Door. 9 is Freddy Krueger. 8 is Daffy Duck. 7 is Scorpion. 6 is Beetlejuice. I said that about 7 times now. He's here somewhere. Joker is number 5. Courage the Cowardly Dog is number 4. Neo from The Matrix is 3. Harry Potter is 2. And Freakazoid is number 1. All those honorable mentions. There's my list. If you want to see it in written form. And with that being said, that's the characters I want to see added to MultiVersus. What characters do all of you want to see? Put in the comment section down below. We can discuss it, have some fun there. My name is Sniping1. Peace. Please subscribe if you want to. Have a lovely day. And stay tuned for more videos on my channel. I am going to make a comeback, and I'm going to make up for the lack of videos the last year and a half. Let's get this ball rolling. Top 10s or otherwise. See you all later.